March 27th, 2020. Steven Universe Future aired its final episode, and just like that, an era ended. A show that meant so much to me and many others concluded, leaving a cookie cat-shaped hole in our hearts. Steven Universe had many things that made it emotionally resonant and compelling, but possibly one of the best elements of this came with the songs of the show, brilliantly written by show creator Rebecca Sugar. With more songs than I feel like counting, practically each one added a new facet to the show and its characters, giving depth and understanding in a way that wouldn't be possible otherwise. With that in mind, I feel it would be therapeutic for me to count down the 10 songs that hit me the hardest and will stick with me for years to come. Big Fat Zucchini. Airing in episode 22 of season 1, Steven and the Stevens opens with and Steven going to the Sea Spire in an attempt to retrieve a time-traveling plot device introduced for the sake of the episode. After the mission supposedly fails, the gang return home and Steven goes to see his dad about Beach-a-Palooza, which I guess is a thing, because they're going to be playing in it. But problems occur, and even though Steven tries to fix them by going back in time, it just isn't meant to be. However, in trying to do so, Steven happens upon his past self, and they decide to make a band of Stevens, cleverly named Steven and the Stevens. They get along at first, but things start to go south when main Steven tries to assign specific roles to each Steven, and in a way, is labeling himself. Steven 2 being the smart one, Steven 3 being the funny one, and Steven 4 being the sensitive one, labeling himself as the handsome one. After this, the other Stevens get upset that Steven implies they aren't handsome, which could very well be both his hubris and his self-doubt being at odds, Steven not being able to reconcile how he sees himself, showing depth to his character that we don't often get to see. Steven has always had self-doubt about his role as a crystal gem, and this has possibly leaked out to his overall self-esteem. After this inner conflict, the other Stevens write and perform the number 10 pick, Big Fat Zucchini, a culmination of Steven's own self-hate, having him shout insults at himself, clearly things he really does believe to be true, only being able to surface when he has an external, other Steven to say it to. For me, this song holds a real emotion and has an angry tone we don't often see in the songs. At the end of the episode, Steven seems to be able to somewhat reconcile these problems, but it is only after he destroys dozens of more clones after the plot reaches the climax, showing that at this time, Steven might not be able to fully deal with them, and instead watches himself die, perhaps allowing Steven to forgive himself for now. We Deserve to Shine. A truly wonderful addition to the series, We Deserve to Shine uniquely tackles body positivity and how everyone deserves to shine. It's a straightforward message for sure, but in the present day with media filled with celebrities and influencers making us feel like we have to look, act, or be a certain way, it can be hard to embrace your own personality in fear of not being respected by the world around you. Here, Ruby, Sapphire, Pearl, Amethyst, Connie, and Steven are filming something unclear to the audience for a purpose that isn't all that important to the episode. It is clear that the motivation of our cast here is to help other people who may be struggling, which is a noble cause when you consider who it is that is giving us this message, people who have struggled with themselves and their identity in the past and present. This song could possibly have been higher on the list, but the episode surrounding it is somewhat confusing in its setup, and we are left to fill in the gaps of what is happening for ourselves, which is a risky move for a show to pull, and it does lead to some disconnect, but only a bit. The positives of this song vastly outweigh the things that could be criticized about it, which is why it is the 9th best song in Steven Universe. Birthday Song. In the episode So Many Birthdays, episode 13 of season 1, Steven discovers that the gems are far older than any humans, and they have never celebrated birthdays, it not being a part of their culture. Well, Steven is just not having it and decides he will make up for lost time and give them all of their birthdays all at once. This involves having cake and games and such. This leads to the titular birthday song where Steven sings about how it might as well be their birthday and he's gonna throw a party, even if their age isn't real and their bodies are an illusion. There are, of course, quite a few things going on here. Steven is confronting some rather hard to understand cultural differences between human and gem kind. And in an attempt to reconcile this fact, Steven assumes that his culture and his way of doing things is natural and good, so he tries his best to get his family, the gems, to participate. Of course, Steven is wrong here. For one, time works fairly differently on the gem homeworld than on Earth, so I doubt the gems would be able to pinpoint their birthday in human years anyway. But regardless, they see no reason to celebrate something like that. This song does a good job of showing Steven's naivete early on, and marks the point where he truly starts to understand just how different the gems are, something he has had no reason to consider up until now. It shows that Steven has a lot to learn, but what is made clear by the tone of the song is that Steven has nothing but good intentions. He cares for and loves the gems and wants to share something that means a lot to him. But as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Luckily, construction on Steven's road was stopped early and promptly dismantled after going through the proper channels and paperwork as required by the state of Delmarva. What was I saying? Steven Tag. In Season 1, Episode 31, we have Keep Beach City Weird, a pretty middle-of-the-road episode saved by the first minute of it being spectacular and thrilling in all the right ways. We open with and Steven playing a game called Steven Tag, where apparently if Steven tags you, you must shapeshift into Steven. Steven tags Pearl, but she refuses to play because she is too dignified, I guess. Yes, I know there are later, deeper implications as to why Pearl doesn't want to shapeshift, and it's really sad and deep and such, but we don't know this yet, so stop bullying me. Garnet then yeets Amethyst into the fucking ground and wins the game, I guess. We then cut to the song in question, where Steven sings about how he can't win every game of Steven Tag. It may be his name, but it's just not his game. What I love about this is how, throughout the show, especially Season 1, Steven will just sing, for no reason, with no instruments or anything. It's something I'm sure we all do, and it really helps Steven seem more real. So why is this one in particular number 7 when he has done this on many occasions? Well, in part, it's because even after losing a game, Steven manages to still be really happy and chipper about it, and it makes me happy. Additionally, I find myself humming it a lot, so that gives it points. Yeah, that's number 7. Hey Mr. Postman, bring me a post. The third episode of Steven Universe brings us one of the catchiest songs I find myself humming daily. And while it doesn't directly have strong themes, the context surrounding the scene is what gives it magic. The first fun thing you might not notice on your initial viewing is that in quick succession, this song is both used in a diegetic and non-diegetic manner. While diegetic music would be heard on the radio in a scene, for example, non-diegetic music is like the soundtrack to a film. We open with Steven singing this song while waiting for a package to arrive, likely something that he does while he's bored, showing that Steven is musically inclined by nature. Immediately afterwards, the postman Jamie arrives with the same song Steven was singing as a tune that is from this point on used specifically for Jamie, showing that both Steven and Jamie are clearly close friends who are linked through this one tune. Without being told, we see that they have a natural banter and are fairly playful with each other. Because Steven is so musical, oftentimes we are shown the closeness of his relationships through music. So for Jamie, a character that we are newly introduced to have a musical connection to Steven, we are quickly able to see that the two of them are closer than Steven might be with the other residents of Beach City. Tower of Mistakes. As Amethyst's first and only solo song, we see a lot of her self-doubt and hatred on display. Season 2, Episode 11 is in large part a callback to an earlier episode, Coach Steven, all the way back in Season 1, Episode 20. In said episode, Amethyst and Garnet fuse for the first time to become Sugilite to take out the communication hub because it was hurting television, and that shit is unacceptable. Sugilite is a large, loud, violent, and dangerous person who became out of control and put Steven in harm's way. Now in this episode, we return to the communication hub because the villainous yet adorable Peridot repaired it to try to contact Homeworld, a decidedly bad thing for most people involved. But because of the previous trouble with Sugilite, Garnet says she's too dangerous to form for now, opting instead to form the fusion Sardonyx with Pearl, who would be less volatile. This doesn't do anything to help Amethyst's self-esteem, as she can only feel good about herself when she is fused with Garnet, since she views herself as
a puny, overcooked runt
who isn't worth anything on her own. This culminates in the titular song where she laments on how she holds herself responsible for things going wrong last time. That event only made her feel worse about herself, and it is clear that she has been holding on to those thoughts since then. Yet despite her clear jealousy of Pearl, she still believes that they are better together. All Amethyst wants is a chance to redeem herself and prove that she can be better, but now she has to watch Pearl do the same job but better. It shatters her. This song may just be the perfect encapsulation of Amethyst's character arc in the show, learning to love herself for who she is, accepting her faults, and growing into her own gem. Serious Song. Season 1, Episode 8, Serious Steven. The episode opens with a flashback to Steven seemingly injured after something bad happens, later revealed to be an incident involving the teacup ride at Funland. In the present, the crystal gems are on a mission, and Steven, armed with nothing but his ukulele and excitement, joins on his first serious mission and has the chance to prove himself to the crystal gems, his idols and family, after admiring them from afar for a majority of his life up until now. The episode has a lot of Steven struggling to be serious since he's a child, but by the end of the episode, it is Steven's trouble on the teacups that ultimately allow the gems to complete their mission, showing that while Steven's immaturity can lead to trouble, his experiences as a human can allow him to come up with solutions that the gems wouldn't be able to think of without him, giving him a solid place on the team. All of that is what leads to the Serious Song at the end of the episode, where Steven sings the praises of the crystal gems and their exploits, seemingly denying himself much credit, possibly showing that he still doesn't think very highly of himself, even if this wasn't in the forefront of his mind at the time. All of Steven's life, he has been living in his mother's shadow, and even this early on, he knows this to some degree. This episode, and this song especially, is one of the earliest signs of him looking down on himself and holding the others up so high in such a casual manner. This story thread lasts for almost the entirety of the show. Potluck. Season 4, Episode 23, The Good Lars, brings us a fairly layered episode with an equally layered song to match. The episode opens on Steven trying a very nice pumpkin pastry Lars made. Oh yeah, Lars is a baker and that's cool as hell. Buck Dewey enters the frame and invites Lars, Sadie, and Steven to a cool potluck for cool kids. And Sadie and Steven want Lars to bring a baked good of some variety to show off his amazing talent. After some convincing, they seemingly get Lars to make ube, and everything is going swell. But arriving at the party, we find just Sadie and the cool kids there, and we get to hear Potluck, the first single of the soon-to-be Sadie and the Suspects. In the past, Sadie never really gave much thought to the cool kids, perfectly content to just hang out with Lars. She only came for Lars' sake, but he isn't here for whatever reason, so she's alone with them and Steven, only now getting to see how actually cool and chill they are. This song is very simple, consisting of only 2 different words, those being pizza and potluck. But don't let the simplicity of the lyrics fool you. Context is important, and here doubly so. In the beginning of the song, the cool kids are just jamming out with Sadie listening, but she summons the courage to jump in and do some singing of her own. Sadie has always loved singing, with an entire episode being focused on it. In said episode, Sadie was struggling with wanting to share her passion for singing with other people by singing in Beachapalooza, but for a variety of reasons she ends up not participating, leaving Steven to jump in instead. So now we have a parallel between Lars and Sadie, both of them having a talent that they're afraid to share with other people. Sadie is able to overcome her fear, but Lars is still not able to summon the courage. It seems like Sadie was only able to undergo this growth because Lars didn't show up, implying that they both are crutches for each other and can only evolve as people by being away from each other. This is further supported by Lars' development later in the show when he's isolated on the Gem homeworld. It's fine, don't worry about it. Lars and Sadie are sadly not good for each other, and the seed for that started sprouting this episode with this song about a potluck. Do or Donut? Joking Victim, the 21st episode of Season 1. While not focused on the main plot of the season, I still find it fun regardless. The most fun of which is the song in question, Do or Donut. We find out that Mr. Smiley used to be an R&B singer and made an employee training music video for the Big Donut, which Sadie shows to Steven for unimportant reasons. This song is unbelievably catchy, which Steven seems to agree with. In fact, I have been listening to this song over and over and over and over. And with that experience, I can proudly say that I officially know all there is to say on the subject. What I want to focus on is the character and history of Mr. Smiley as we know him, but only enough to explain the beauty of the song. There might be a Mr. Smiley video in the future. Wink. We know that Mr. Smiley has had an extensive creative career, jumping all over the place with different careers all in their own medium, showing him to have a clear love of art and expression. We don't have a clear idea of when he was in each career aside from his current ones, but regardless, there are some interesting questions that can be asked surrounding this, namely why? Does he jump around so many jobs because he can't contain his creativity, or is it out of necessity? He's the only one working at Funland for all the original show, so he can't afford to hire new people, showing that he's likely not the most financially stable person around. Is he similar to Greg in this aspect? Is Mr. Smiley his birth name? We know Greg changed his, and his name plays into a comedy duo he was once a part of, so there's definitely a precedent for it. I'm aware that I'm somewhat straying from the subject of the song in question, but this song was the first time we really saw a look into his past, and it sparked my interest in the character in earnest, so you'll have to forgive me for gushing. Study with Connie. This is a lo-fi style video released by Cartoon Network around the time of Steven Universe Future. This is a very calming song, and I'm listening to it even as I write this section. One thing that strikes me about it is how it must have come to be, as it's clearly a reference to the Lo-Fi Girl of massive fame. Something like that being noticed by Cartoon Network and the Steven Universe staff makes me happy. But what's even more fun is the myriad of Easter eggs in the video, little knickknacks on our desks that call back to the show and such. It's really sweet and something like this existing warrants being mentioned on the list, even if it didn't quite crack the top 10. Here Comes a Thought. By far the best song in the show, listening to it always calms me down and makes my day. Definitely worthy of the number one spot. And that was the list. It took a lot of deliberation to be sure, and I had to make some pretty tough decisions. I know it might bother some people that I really only chose the most popular songs, but I can't help it. They're the most popular for a reason. My only hope is that I was able to give you even more reason to love and appreciate them like I do. Thanks for watching. Have a nice night.